Soldiers of Ukraine's 43rd Heavy Artillery Brigade spent New Year's Eve near a tree line, some of them chain-smoking as they fired shells toward Russian fortifications inside Kreminna, a key city in the Luhansk province that Russian forces have occupied since the summer. The fighting here has surged recently as the Ukrainian military seeks to retake Kreminna, a gateway to the much larger cities of Syeverodonetsk and Lysychansk, two key industrial centers in the Donbas region of eastern Ukraine. "Today is a usual day for us," said a senior battery officer, who asked to be identified by his code name, Skiff, for security reasons. "We've been working since early morning, and we're waiting for orders to start shooting from the cannons and give whatever help our infantry needs on the ground in Kreminna." Skiff said his unit was trying to target command posts and Russian artillery systems. "The battlefield is a difficult place because there's a lot of forest and it's difficult to fight between trees," he said. "Artillery systems lose their effectiveness in areas with a lot of forest and trees because the enemy can hide anywhere." Already, Skiff said, his unit had targeted destroyed buildings inside the city, which can be used as cover by Russian forces. "I suppose the enemy on the ground isn't very happy with us," Skiff said. It has been a year of immense loss for Ukraine. But on the last day of 2022, Skiff was optimistic that his brigade would be able to take a break and celebrate a little, a bright moment for exhausted soldiers who have been fighting for months. Russia rained missiles and exploding drones on Ukraine's capital and other cities on Saturday in a deadly New Year's Eve assault, punctuating President Vladimir V Putin's stated resolve in a speech to continue a war he called a sacred duty to our ancestors and descendants. The aerial bombardments killed at least one person and partly destroyed a hotel in the capital, Kyiv, inflicted damage elsewhere and forced Ukraine's war-ravaged electric utilities to preemptively shut off power. There are explosions in Kyiv, Kyiv's mayor, Vitaly Klitschko, wrote on the Telegram messaging app, "Stay in shelters." Air defense shot down 12 of at least 20 cruise missiles launched by Russia on Saturday afternoon, the top Ukrainian military commander, General Valery Zaluzhny, said on Telegram. The missiles had been launched from Russian strategic bombers over the Caspian Sea. A lull followed the afternoon bombardment, but air raid sirens again sounded in Kyiv just after midnight, followed shortly by one explosion, as Russia continued its assault on Ukraine into the first hours of 2023. Ukrainian officials said air defense systems had knocked down an incoming missile, and Mr. Klitschko wrote on Telegram that a rocket fragment had struck a car, but there were no injuries. Then, shortly after 2 a.m., a half-dozen loud explosions rocked central Kyiv, ringing out in an otherwise dark and still city, where residents were confined in their apartments by the curfew despite the holiday. It was unclear whether air defense weapons were firing or missiles or drones were hitting the city. For 3 months, Russia has launched volleys of cruise missiles and drones at Ukraine's energy grid, in what military analysts say is a strategy of plunging the country into cold and darkness to lower morale. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine had warned on Thursday that the Russian military might launch another wave of missile attacks before the year-end celebrations. Moscow fired a large volley this past week, disrupting electrical power in Kyiv and in other cities. In a videotaped message on Saturday, Mr. Zelensky called the Russian strikes on New Year's Eve inhuman. In Kyiv, the missiles on Saturday damaged the hotel, a large concert hall, a university campus, some residential buildings and 2 schools, according to the city's mayor and defense officials. At least 20 people were injured, including a Japanese journalist, the mayor's office said. "A terrorist state will not be forgiven," Mr. Zelensky said. "And those who give orders for such strikes, and those who carry them out, will not receive a pardon, to put it mildly." In Russia, Mr. Putin used his New Year's address on Saturday to rally support for the war, saying that moral and historical righteousness is on our side. Breaking with tradition, he spoke from a military base, flanked by soldiers. What electricity had been available before the strikes went out on Saturday in much of the cities of Kyiv and Odessa and in the Dnipropetrovsk region in central Ukraine as the authorities preemptively switched off power to prevent short circuits on the grid from damage from strikes. Some 30% of consumers were without power in Kyiv, Mr. Klitschko said. Within a few minutes of the explosions in Kyiv, reports of damage in several neighborhoods of the capital came out, and a video posted on the Telegram messaging site showed smoke rising above the city. Mr. Klitschko said that in Kyiv a man had died and at least 14 others, including a Japanese journalist, had been hospitalized. Kirilo Timoshenko, an aide to Mr. Zelensky, said that the city of Khmelnytsky, in western Ukraine, had been attacked by exploding drones and 2 people were wounded. In the Zaporizhia region, residential buildings were damaged and 4 people were injured, including a 14-year-old girl. Between the larger waves of strikes on Thursday and Saturday, the Russian military had kept up the pressure on Ukraine's energy grid with smaller-scale missile attacks, according to Ukraine's military general staff. On Saturday morning, Ukraine's general staff said in a statement that Russia had fired 5 missiles and 10 exploding drones and carried out 29 airstrikes on civilian infrastructure over the previous 24 hours. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine delivered a rousing New Year's Eve address on Saturday night, recalling a year that he said truly began on February 24th, with fear over Russia's invasion that ended with his country hopeful for victory. "We have overcome the panic," he said. "We did not run away but united. We have overcome doubts, despair and fear." Standing in darkness with a Ukrainian flag rippling gently in the breeze behind him, Mr. Zelensky recounted in a videotaped speech many notable moments from the war, including the attack on a maternity hospital, the intense fighting at the Azovstal steel plant, the destruction of a Russian bridge to Crimea, the retaking of Kherson, the sinking of a Russian flagship, as the video cut to footage that underscored his words. "This year has struck our hearts," he said, according to a translated transcript posted on his official website. "We've cried out all the tears. All the prayers have been yelled. 311 days. We have something to say about every minute." The speech was just one of the hundreds Mr. Zelensky has given this year in a relentless campaign not only to steel his country to fight Russia's army but to galvanize support for Ukraine abroad. While the history of most wars is written by the victor after the fact, Mr. Zelensky has created a storyline of the war against Russia in real time, a running narrative telling Ukrainians in nightly video addresses how they should view the battles, justify their hardships and believe in the country's ultimate success. As the new year approached, Mr. Zelensky recounted moments of despair and triumph alike, and heralded the resolve of his fellow Ukrainians. The first missiles in February